also use the treble to tell you when to dodge or when to make thirds, which is a very good way of doing it, particularly when you start calling bobs and signals. It's a little bit more wordy than the circle of work, but it's very useful. And lastly, I've put on there the do something when the treble finishes leading approach, which sounds very silly, but it's probably the way most pro or very experienced ringers would do it. So with time, you develop a bit of an understanding about what the bells around you are doing. And if you can observe what the treble is doing, that can tell you when to dodge at the right time. That method actually works for Grandsire on any number of bells. So it's the one I use, but it's probably not the way you should teach new people. Right, so the circle of work looks a little bit like this. And so it has the 3 deviations from the hunting in a clockwise circle. First we have the making thirds, then we have the dodging 4-5 down, and then the dodging 4-5 up. So it's those red boxes which are the bits of work, and they always occur in that order. So in the plain course, so before we call any bobs and singles, you always go around this circle in a clockwise direction. And those blue circles just show where the actual bells start. So bell 3 starts by making thirds, bell 4 starts by dodging 4-5 down, bell 5 starts by dodging 4-5 up, but then they all follow this same pattern. Right, using the treble method is usually described like this. There's a table that you would need to remember, which tells you what to do depending on how many bells you follow before you follow the treble. So it's based around hunting. After you lead, you count the number of bells you follow until you follow the treble. So if you were leading and then you were leaving the lead, if the treble was the first bell, which is often quite easy to pick, that would represent 0 bells before the treble because it was the first bell. In that case, you make the thirds. If you followed 1 bell and then followed the treble, which would be the first backstroke, you would do the 4-5 up dodge. But if you followed 2 bells and then the treble, so if it was quite some time until you followed the treble, it would be 4-5 down. I've also put a column there for 3 bells. So if you were leading and then you were hunting towards the back and you rang over 3 bells before you rang over the treble, so it could be, so you rang over bell 3, then bell 4, then bell 5, and then bell number 1, then you would keep hunting. You shouldn't do anything. And that's what happens with the 2. So the bell number 2 in the plain course also hunts, and it works as per this table. And it's useful keeping that in mind because when we do start calling bobs and singles, that's a very important column. So, and a good reason why this is a good way of ringing Grandsire is because this always holds even when bobs and singles take effect. I mean, you can ring touches in other ways, but when you start being affected by bobs and singles, this always holds. And so it's quite a useful and good way of doing it. So this is one of, I've got a list of some exercises here you can try to practice the double or to practice the 4-5 dodging and the making thirds. So as I keep saying, being comfortable with hunting is really important. And you might find standing behind an experienced treble ringer while they're ringing the treble to a doubles method might be a way to go and might help because they'll probably ring in the right spot. Well, hopefully they'll get it right. You can practice dodging, so you can start in rounds, and 4 and 5 can swap over every stroke. And if you take bell 4, that's a way of practicing the down dodging. And if you take the 5, that will be an up dodge. You can also practice by ringing plain hunt on 3. And if you ring bell number 3, it will look almost identical to what you will see as you make thirds in Grandsire doubles. You can put those exercises together, and if a blue line makes sense to you, I've got one shown on the right-hand side, and so you can combine those. So you can have the front 3 bells ringing plain hunt on 3 and bells 4 and 5 practicing their dodging. So if that's comfortable and you can hunt well, those should be the 2 things you need to put them all together. And knowing what comes up next, you can do in those ways I've mentioned before. Right, I hope I haven't lost everyone. So I'm only going to touch briefly on touches, and I'm only going to go over bobs because the singles are very, very similar to bobs. And on higher numbers, singles and bobs are almost identical. So one problem with Grandsire doubles as opposed to Grandsire on higher numbers is that there are a lot of variations from what is otherwise a very consistent pattern. And you don't see that consistent pattern of doubles because everything becomes an exception on such a small number of bells. But anyway, I'm going to try and explain how the bobs work. And if you would like more, I'm happy to go into it in more detail. It looks like we'll have some time to do that. But bobs and singles in general, well, in all methods, are momentary variations in the pattern of a method. So all methods follow some path or procedure, and bobs and singles are just slight variations to that when the conductor says bob or single. How they take effect vary from method to method, and unfortunately the Grandsire chords are a little bit more complicated than most, but I'll try and explain them. In general, in Grandsire, it pushes you forward on the circle of work. So if we go back to the circle of work earlier, you skip out a place. I know that for people who have done it before, that's not a particularly good explanation, but if you were ringing Grandsire on high numbers, that is the rule. It pushes you forward one step in the order of work, and that's why I try and push that at the doubles level as well. And the example I have on the right, which I'll go through in a second, that's what happens. The calls also affect all bells. So up until now, we've treated the two as purely hunting, and that's what it does in the plain course. But when we start calling bobs and singles, the two becomes an inside bell. So when a bob is called, you will do one of two things. You will either double dodge immediately where you are, or you will make thirds. So if you're at the back, so if you've hunted over 3 or 4 bells and a bob is called, you will double dodge immediately. Now, a double dodge is just an extension of the single dodge, and practicing in the way I've mentioned should help with that as well. It's just sort of repeating that deviation. And if you're on the front, if you're leading while the bob's called, or if you've just left the lead, so if you've only followed one bell and the bob's called, you make thirds. So the slogan is, if you're at the back, you double dodge. If you're at the front, you make thirds. Probably the harder thing to know is what do you do next. So you can probably get through the bob, but what happens next? And you just continue on the circle of work from where you now are. So if you've pushed yourself forward on the circle of work through a double dodge, you will have done a piece of work which is on the circle of work, and then you just keep traversing the circle of work. So if you look at this example in the top or on the right-hand side, and I'm sorry if the blue line doesn't mean much to you, and there's no reason why it should at this stage, but anyway, the first bit of work from the third would normally be a 4-5 down dodge. But as you are heading up towards the back, someone has called a bob. Okay, so you're at the back, so you're going to double dodge immediately, and you're going to push yourself forward on the circle of work. So that double dodge actually becomes a 4-5 up dodge, not the 4-5 down single dodge that you were expecting to do. So you've done a double dodge, and it's pushed you forward on the circle of work. And so after the 4-5 down, after the 4-5 up dodge, which is what you've done, you didn't do the 4-5 down dodge. You've been forced to do a 4-5 up dodge, and so the next bit of work is thirds, because thirds always follows 4-5 up on the circle of work. And in this particular example, there's another bob, which after the next lot of thirds, the conductor is called bob again, and instead of doing the 4-5 down dodge, which you expected as per the circle, you do this double dodge, which happens to be the 4-5 up dodge, because you've skipped over that 1 point on the circle of work. Now, there are a lot of caveats to this because doubles is a relatively small number bell-wise, and there are 2 exceptions which are a little bit nasty. But these 2 rules still hold. So if you double dodge immediately where, sorry, excuse me for a moment. Okay, so that explains what happens at the back. You do the double dodge and then you move on the circle of work. If you're on the front and you make thirds, you may have already been intending to make thirds, and that's fine. You make thirds anyway, and after thirds you do 4-5 down. Now, if you're just leaving the lead and someone's called a bob, you make thirds, which is earlier than you were expecting to. But you make thirds because that's what the rules say. And if that happens, you then keep hunting, because what's actually happened is you're now taking the place of bell number 2, which, if you remember, was already hunting. So that's why the table is quite good. So if these two rules for what happens at a bob work very well with the table back here, because you can do that double dodge at the back and make thirds on the front procedure, and then you just go back to this table, because even this covers that those exceptions. And if you get forced into the position where you have to keep hunting because you have the 3 bells before you pass the treble, the only thing that you can do to get out of that is if someone calls another bob. And if someone calls another bob, that's going to happen while you're at the back. Just take my word for that. And it will make you do 4-5 down, which will put you back on that circle of work, and you just keep going around the circle of work. So that's really the end of the presentation. I'm sorry if that was a little clumsy, but I'm more than happy to go into more detail or explain things in a different way. I do know I haven't talked about singles, but singles only affect the bells on the front. And in general, if someone says single, please ring a bob. Don't ignore it. If you know how to ring a bob and someone says a single answer, ring a bob, because they're very, very similar. So I'm happy to stop sharing the screen, as has been suggested by my lovely offside. But oh, hello everyone. Oh, there are more people now. They weren't there before. Right, hello. I don't know when all of you arrived, but we started about 5-6 past. But
oh, right. Sorry, I've got the wrong time. I was thinking
there is another session starting nominally at 7:30, which you might be wanting to look at. But
what was your session on?
Grandsire Doubles.
Ah, that's the one I wanted done.
That's okay. I think the slides and the video will be uploaded somewhere.
Yeah, we managed to record just after Plain Hunt was explained. So most of the Grandsire was explained. Recorded.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm not sure if the next presenter is ready to start, but I'm happy to take questions for a bit.
Yeah, if there are any questions, feel free to ask.
And also via email, if things come up now, or if you'd like some more information, I've got quite a lot of material on it, if you would like some of that.
It was very good. Thank you, Tom.
Oh, thank you, Marilyn.
It was very clear. It was very clear. Thank you. I'm learning more each time. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Tom. But it's the mud is a little clearer, shall we say?
Yes. Yes, I'm sure it probably got a little bit wordy and complicated.
No, not at all. No, but it made sense, sort of thing. So it's good. I'm getting the hang, believe it or not.
Okay, well, when we can ring again,
that'd be nice.
It is, unfortunately, some of these more fundamental sessions, it's quite difficult, as I was telling Richard earlier, because they're really doing things, and a lot of it will just click when you are on the end of a road, but it's a bit hard to explain on paper.
I'll just say that was good, Tom. I mean, I've been trying, playing Bob. I haven't run Grandsire, but that gives me an idea of what to expect.
Okay. Well, yes, it shouldn't be any more complicated than playing Bob. Certainly before you start calling Bobs and singles, it really is quite gentle compared to playing Bob. And you also you get the bonus that people actually want to ring Grandsire more than they want to ring Plain Bob. Plain Bob doubles is often, we're ringing Bob doubles because we have to. It's a perfectly good method. I'm not trying to rubbish Bob doubles, but people will ring Grandsire doubles and will continue to ring Grandsire doubles by choice, not because it's the only thing people can ring.
Are there any other questions for Tom?
Sorry?
Are there any other questions?
I don't think so. I think I've stunned enough people. So But we'll hang on and happy to listen into the next session.
Awesome. Well, that's my session. I'll stop this recording then.